Hello, and welcome back to the COVID Long Haulers podcast, where we share real stories from people living with long COVID, what they faced, how they're coping, and surviving. I'm Emerson, and I'm joined by my co host today, Jessie, and by our guest, Eddie.
Hello.
Do I say hi too?
You can if you
Hi.
want to.
Uh,
We actually first spoke to Eddie back in January for our Long COVID Awareness Day episode, but that conversation went far beyond what we could include in that 10 to 15-minute segment of that episode. So today we're really glad to share the full conversation with you. Hi, Eddie. Welcome to the show.
hi, Emerson. Hi, Jessie. It's good to be here.
So, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Eddie. I am 30 years old. I currently live in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, but I'm originally from the west coast of the United States. This month actually marks my 4 years of having long COVID. So glad I could
Wow.
be here to celebrate it with you, memorialize
Celebrate.
it on the podcast. It was January 2022 when I had my first known COVID infection, and I just never really got better.
After that was when long COVID hit you, or did you have subsequent infections?
Yeah, so my long COVID started after my first infection. My first infection, or known infection, I should say, was pretty mild in the acute phase.
Hmm.
But even so, after that, I noticed that I had reduced capacity to walk long distances or up hills, which was a problem for me because my commute was uphill.
Oh,
I would walk about 15 minutes uphill to my job every day. Actually, my most acute symptom was like vertigo, was dizziness, which was also difficult for me because at the time I was using a lot of ladders at my job. And so I had to
oh
like stop using ladders for a couple of
Gosh.
weeks because I was just too dizzy. It was a liability. Then in March or April of that same year, I got sick again with COVID. I was working in retail at the time. Even with masking and trying to do my best to not get sick, it was just not really possible at that time with the Omicron wave and with the majority of the public stopping masking at that time. Yeah, so I got sick again. And after that was when I really started having even more serious problems with fatigue, with concentration. I had some like secondary opportunistic infections after that. Like I had multiple sinus infections that I had to take antibiotics for in the following months. And overall, that just really set my health back quite a bit.
wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your long COVID symptoms that you're currently dealing with?
Yeah. So I kind of feel like, as far as long COVID goes, I feel like I kind of won the jackpot. I got,
Everything, all the symptoms.
everything.
Do you mean
Yeah.
lost the jackpot? Do you
Lost the
mean?
jackpot. It depends on how you want to look at it. Um, when we set up the Discord roles for what are the different subtypes, what are the different symptom clusters, and I'm going through and I'm just selecting every single emoji, like, oh yes, I do have this, I do have that, like I do have chronic fatigue, I do get PEM, I have brain fog and cognitive issues. It took me a long time to accept that I likely have MCAS. I have gastrointestinal problems, like really bad bloating in the mornings, especially chronic pain. What else? What else is there?
Just go
Like,
around the whole body system.
yeah, sensory
Yeah.
issues has been a big one. My migraines have gotten worse. And the dysautonomia of it all, which
Hmm.
covers so many different things. Like I have
Yeah.
really, really bad debilitating POTS. That's one of the worst things that I deal with on a daily basis. Just like not being able to get out of bed for the first 2 hours of the day because just turning over makes my heart just pound so fast and so hard. On top of that, with the dysautonomia, like I have really, really dry eyes, really, really dry mouth. I think there's like some immune component going on where like I get
Yeah.
sick a lot more easily. And when I get sick, it's a lot worse. But the things
Yeah.
that I notice the most, definitely the POTS. I have really bad pain in my calves, basically constantly. And I have really bad lower back pain, neck pain, pain in my shoulders too.
Like musculoskeletal, like
Yeah, like I would say I'm like
muscle.
at least a 6 all the time with just like pain in my body. But as we
Wow.
know, people experiencing chronic pain that's really skewed. Like, what's a 6 for someone with chronic
Yeah.
pain? That might be a 7 or an 8 for someone who doesn't consistently experience pain in their body. The fatigue is really bad. The PEM is really bad. I'm basically housebound. I can leave the house occasionally. I often have to use mobility aids to do so. The infrastructure is not friendly. It's actually probably, I would say, actively hostile to people who have to use mobility aids.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's on purpose, but it is the way it is. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I spend most of my time in the house.
When we're talking about disease progression, like, have there been some things that have gotten better as some things have gotten worse?
Absolutely, there have been some things that have gotten better. The biggest thing I can think about right now, like sensory processing issues, and I was also having really bad anxiety like symptoms that I think were actually due to adrenaline dumps. Um,
Mhm.
those two symptoms were so bad my first like 2.5 years of having long COVID. Super debilitating. There were certain topics that I couldn't talk about because I would get a terrible adrenaline dump. I would get this terrible feeling of existential dread in my stomach. And that has gotten so much better. I don't experience that at all anymore, actually, which I'm so
That's
thankful
amazing.
for. Yeah,
Hmm.
it is amazing because I honestly think that that was the worst thing because now that that's gone, I can think about what I'm experiencing in my body, the different symptoms I'm experiencing. I can think more rationally about, okay, why did I get into this crash or how do I manage this symptom? Whereas before,
Yeah.
I just felt like I was dying. Like my body was
Yeah.
in a constant state of feeling like it was dying. When you feel that chemically in your body, there's no way for you to improve anything. There's no way
Hmm.
for you to
You
calm
can't
yourself
problem solve.
down. You can't problem
Yeah.
solve. And it really
Yeah.
harmed my social relationships too, because how are you supposed to connect with other people when you're feeling that way?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
or plan for the future when you're feeling that way.
Hmm.
So I'm really glad that's gone. And the other thing with the sensory processing, some of that's gotten better. Some of it I just learned to manage better, like having noise canceling headphones for things like sound, especially when I'm cooking. Having the stove going and the fan going and the water and the sink running and the air purifier
Multitasking.
running and all that stuff was so overstimulating.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I cook every day. So what was happening to me before was I was still going grocery shopping in person, and that was a sensory nightmare, as well as a nightmare for my pots. And I was cooking really elaborate meals all the time, and it would happen at least once a week. It might have happened more often. It would happen really frequently that I would get these sensory overwhelm and probably just like extreme fatigue attacks where I would collapse on the ground because I just had no more energy left in my body. And I would start crying and hyperventilating, and I couldn't stop myself. And it felt like my skin was fizzing off. I don't want to be grotesque, but it literally felt like everything from my heart up to the top of my head on my arms. It felt like my skin was burning and fizzling off my body, especially in my scalp. And I would see like aura, like these like lightning and like kind of like weird noodles in my vision, and I would
Been there.
collapse and I wouldn't be able to move at all, and my
Yeah.
partner would have to drag me across the floor and get me on the couch. You know what I mean? That was happening at least once a week, and that does not happen to me anymore. When I start to feel overwhelmed, when I start to feel like my heart rate is raising a lot when I'm cooking, I'm still very careful to like, okay, I'm gonna lay on the floor right now
You
and
learned
try and
your
regulate.
lesson or something. Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
start to learn. It's
Yeah.
hard to know, like, did this get better? Did I just learn?
Yeah.
When you describe the like skin fizzing off, I think most people have no idea the absolute suffering and the torture that comes with this disease. A lot of people can't put themselves even in a universe where their body feels that way. And there's just these unpredictable things that happen, and the trauma that comes along with that of living in a body that you can't predict.
I was just thinking because I don't actually know what it feels like to be healthy anymore. Being in my third year of long COVID, I don't know how it feels like to wake up in the morning and actually feel like, oh, I slept well, and not be traumatized from my dreams and just think, I can do something today. I think a big aspect of that anxiety. I don't want to call it anxiety, but that like constant existential dread feeling passing could potentially just be us learning to exist within our new vessels. I don't know.
Us
Yeah.
just forgetting, like you said, forgetting what it feels like to feel
Yeah,
healthy. This is our new normal. I hate
it's
that term. New
it's
normal.
exhausting. It's not
Yeah.
normal, but then what is
No.
normal? Can you tell us a little bit about how your life looked like before all of those symptoms started and led you to where you are now?
Yeah, before I got sick, I was a very active person. I don't think there was ever an hour in my day that wasn't filled with doing something. I
Mhm.
worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time. I participated in the gig economy. I was doing Uber Eats on the weekends, or I was walking dogs. I also, for a time, sold my blood plasma, which I don't necessarily recommend to people, but
Millennials, we know what it's like.
yeah, so I was always doing something. I was the master at like batching tasks. I would do my homework on my Chromebook at the bar, drinking with my friends. And even in the first few years of this pandemic, when we couldn't go to bars anymore, I would be doing e-filing work for my union till like 2 a.m. on Discord calls with my friends, watching them stream games, talking to them. Like I was just always go, 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 go. I was very physically active too. I would walk a lot. I don't know, that's just the kind of person I was. I was always, inviting people to do errands with me. If someone needed help moving, I'd always help. I'd always find time to do all these things. And I always had energy for it too. I always had the energy to do things. I never felt tired. I felt kind of unstoppable. People would actually tell me that all the time or ask me, like, how do you do all this stuff? How do you manage to go to school full time and have 2 jobs and have a social life? And
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know. I just do. I just do it because I like to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very active, dynamic person before getting sick. Maybe I'm still that person. It's just I don't have the capacity to do any of those things anymore. So yeah, it's a really big difference. It's like night and day.
How would you maybe describe a typical day in your life now?
Would you like to know before starting school or now that I've started school?
Maybe before
Before.
school, and then we can compare it with how you're doing now with school.
My chronic illness, my level of disability has been pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
There have been times where I've been on an upswing and able to do more. There have been times where I've been on a massive downswing. But before starting school, during like a good period, we could say, I can make myself coffee in the morning, eat a light breakfast. We're talking like yogurt, you know? Put some slop in a bowl, call it a day. I could make lunch, which is usually reheating leftovers from the night before, and I could cook dinner. On a really good day, I could unload the dishwasher, maybe load some dishes, but I would never do like the bigger hand washing. I'd always leave that for my partner. If I needed to do something like ordering groceries online, that day I wouldn't do the dishes. My core
Yeah.
tasks are taking care of meals, doing the online grocery shopping, and then on a good day, I might be able to do one other thing. That's basically it.
So you're
Um,
in bed or lying down the whole day resting until you can do those core tasks, and that's your day?
Jesse, I never really thought about it like that, but yeah,
Oh
that is
no.
my
Oh
day.
no.
I am
Oh
laying
no.
down. Yeah, I am. And, during a good period, maybe I can make a social activity work once every 3 months.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I'm doing a social activity, if I'm going to someone's house, for example, that requires sitting up. I can't lay down at someone's house. So, for example, a little over a week ago, I went and did a crochet night at a friend's house. Sounds super cozy and low key, right? But because I was sitting up the entire time, my POTS symptoms were really bad, and I had really bad brain fog, and I was really, really mentally fatigued.
Hmm.
And, it's been over a week, and I'm still feeling PEM just from having to sit up without being able
Yeah.
to lay down periodically for a
For
few
like
hours.
for
So,
2 hours. So that
Yeah.
that 2 hour time of sitting up doing something not even exerting by your previous standards affects you for at least a week afterwards.
Yeah. And in ways people wouldn't expect, people who have this condition might expect this, but the general public wouldn't expect that
Right.
because I sat up for 2 hours, my calves are in extreme pain. My joints feel really loosey-goosey. I'm having a hard time walking, not just because of the pain, but because of the looseness of my joints.
Hmm.
I feel like they might fall apart when you apply pressure.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels very odd, like I'm a marionette or something, and my strings are losing
Yes.
elasticity.
That
It's
is
Yeah.
strange.
exactly what it feels. Oh my God. I always feel like
Yeah,
I feel like I'm gonna fall into a pile of bones. Like it's not all gonna hold together anymore. So
yeah.
the marionette thing makes a lot of sense. Your life changed so drastically through illness, but now you're taking online classes. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the online classes, the classes are not through a traditional educational institution. These are classes geared towards immigrants in Quebec for learning the French language, and they're courses for adults. The courses are full-time classes. They start at 8:30 in the morning and they go until 3:30 in the afternoon, and
Oof.
that's 5 days a week.
Oh my
So
goodness.
this is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you get breaks?
Yeah,
Can you lay down?
for us, we're supposed to have a 45-minute break for lunch in the middle of the day. We're supposed to, I think, get a break about once every hour for 5 to 10 minutes, but often the teacher loses track of time and
Mm.
steamrolls through our breaks.
Ugh.
She might say that, oh, I'll let you go early for lunch today because I forgot your break. But then she'll carry on and forget
Oh
that she was
no.
going to let us out early,
Oh no.
sometimes even letting us out late for lunch. So, no, I don't. Some days we get breaks, some days we don't really get breaks, and that's really difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I need to refill my water, get more electrolytes, stretch my hands
Yeah.
and my legs, go to the bathroom, eat a snack, and I can't really do any of those things. I can't really address adequately any of my bodily needs while
Hmm.
taking these classes because I don't have the time to.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention too that during my classes, we're not allowed to turn our cameras off. I'm not technically allowed to lay down. I get as close to it as I can with this ergonomic pillow setup and a laptop stand and an overbed table. I
Oh,
use
good.
a Bluetooth keyboard that I keep in my lap with some wrist support pillows. And in that way, I can not fully lay down, but I can get pretty reclined using the blurred background on Zoom and everything to kind of
That's
give the
smart.
appearance that I'm not laying down in bed when I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's really socially fatiguing. I get migraines too. I've had a migraine condition since before long COVID, and having to stare at a screen, have headphones on for 7 hours a day, having to interact with 24 other people, and always be on and ready to respond because you never know when you're going to get called on and you're going to have to respond to the teacher. There's not really a way to accommodate out of the social fatigue, the mental fatigue
Yeah.
that the classes inflict upon me. I have blue light filtering coatings on my lenses, on my glasses. I do use like flux on my laptop.
Hmm.
Someone from the server recommended to me recently to turn on black and white mode on my MacBook, and that does help a lot, just
Oh,
reducing visual noise,
Hmm.
yeah.
visual strain. But that's about all I can do on the front of a self-accommodation for the strain of the online classes.
So
So
you're not able to apply for any official accommodations.
unfortunately, no. Like I mentioned earlier, this is through the Ministry of Immigration here. It's not possible to ask for accommodations. The only accommodation you can have is you can ask for 2 breaks. So, say someone in your family dies or you get really sick. You can say, hey, I need to stop the classes right now. I need a break until the next round of classes starts. And then you get put back into those classes. But that doesn't really solve my problem. That's just kicking the
No.
can down the road.
Yeah.
And you only get 2 of those before you get placed at the beginning of the process again.
Gosh.
You have to wait. I waited for 3 years for these classes, and I can't wait any longer.
Hmm.
So, but I
Yeah.
will say that I've had to ask for accommodations before at a different educational institution, a real educational institution, like a university, a public university at that. And I recognize that most people who are considering going back to school will likely be going to school at a real educational institution. And I would really, really strongly recommend to anyone in that position to look for their school's disability and accommodations office. I think all of these schools, at least in the United States, public universities are required to have a disability and accommodations office. And when I needed to ask for accommodations for a separate issue, when I was at university, everyone there was very, very kind, very willing to help. I was able to get the accommodations I needed. They actually also offered me accommodations that I didn't know I needed, but ended up taking advantage of later on. So I don't want people listening to this to be discouraged. I'm in a bit of a unique situation
Hmm.
currently. And I do want to encourage people, if you're considering doing this, to really be aware of what your options are, to really seek out the accommodations that you need through the institution, through your friends and family around you who might be able to help accommodate you through this time, and find any way you can accommodate yourself. Don't feel bad about needing to use single-use plastics, or
Yeah.
find ways to make your work environment more comfortable and supportive of your body. If you're in an environment where you don't really have the support you need around you, like any way you can find to accommodate yourself is absolutely necessary. And I firmly believe that if I had better institutional accommodations and accommodations in my home, that I
Hmm.
would not be so severely affected by these courses.
How is it affecting your body during the day and afterwards?
As I mentioned, my level of functionality is very dynamic. It's changed a lot throughout the years. It's fluctuated a lot. If we'd been having this interview 6 months ago, I was in a pretty sizable upswing at that time. I was able to do a lot more around the house. I was sometimes even doing some laundry. Every
Wow.
day I was helping unload the dishwasher. I was doing a lot for me at this stage of my life.
Hmm.
And that all changed when I started the classes. I cannot do anything without my body aching so badly. My body pain has been so, so bad these past few weeks.
Mm.
Even with using the ergonomic pillow, the tech neck has been killer. My shoulders and my back and just everything hurts. I had a migraine for 3 weeks
Oh
because
my
I had a
God.
migraine and I had it over the weekend. And going back to school on Monday, I never had the opportunity to rest my brain and my eyes the way I needed to overcome the migraine. So I was just working through a migraine, full-time hours, and that doesn't just mean pain. The pain would actually fluctuate in and out a little bit, but I persistently had the sensitivity to light and to noise. I had the nausea, I had gastro symptoms, um, just difficulty forming words, difficulty thinking, um, which is a problem when you're taking a class that's about learning language. So that has been terrible. I haven't been able to perform the tasks that I would normally do to the quality that I would like to. I don't really cook as much. I've been cutting corners anywhere I can
Yeah.
just to survive. But the migraine, the never-ending migraine, probably the most notable of the changes, because normally when I have a migraine, it might last for a day or two. I've been having really bad heart palpitations again,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which again doesn't seem like it would be related to working on the computer, right?
Yeah.
But it's
It's
just like a
all
total
related.
dysregulation.
Yes.
Yes.
When you don't get that time to just rest your body, and especially with people with mitochondrial dysfunction, I call it I'm overcooked. Like there's nothing that to be done, right? Like you can't go backwards, you can't uncook.
Yeah.
After school every day, it's absolutely mandatory that I lay down for at least 90 minutes, preferably 2 hours before I do anything else. And if I don't get that time to rest my eyes and my body, I'm completely flat in a dark room. It's like instant migraine. And lately, just to be completely honest and vulnerable with everyone, like lately at night, I just sob because I'm so exhausted. I
Yeah.
think everyone with this condition knows what it's like when it's like a child, a 2 or 3 year old child who's just so exhausted, they just compulsively, they can't help but just sob.
Yes.
That's what it feels
Yeah.
like. And I wasn't doing that before these classes. I wasn't
You're
compulsively sobbing out of exhaustion every night.
It's part of all of it. You're working so much harder than a healthy person has to work.
No one should have to work this hard when they're so unwell. Earlier, you mentioned the activities that you were able to do on a good day, making yourself breakfast, your coffee, ordering groceries online. Are you still able to do these things now that you're attending these classes, or has that been limited now?
Well, I do not want to say that I'm able to do them because I am currently in a state of rolling PEM. Regardless of whether or not I can do them, I have to do them.
Hmm.
But I would not say that I can do them
Without
because,
repercussions.
right, and I think that something that's important to remember is that if we're doing something that's putting us into PEM, we can't actually do it.
Yeah.
So,
Mic drop.
yeah, I still do the majority of those things. I have asked for more help around the house. I've tried reminding, my partner, I need help. If you could help me make coffee in the morning, that would give me an hour of time. Like that would make
Yeah.
a big difference. In the morning, that's the hardest time for me. Always. The first 2 hours of the day are lost hours. So for me to get up at 8 a.m. and, immediately launch into these classes is very, very difficult. I would say that I've been trying to accommodate myself as best as I can in these activities. So previously, I would grind my own coffee beans. I would make coffee, with an espresso machine, like a real espresso machine.
Yeah.
But the only way I can survive right now is by using the Nespresso capsules instead of the whole coffee ritual. For lunch, I've been relying mostly on cup of noodle. I don't have to wash a dish.
Yeah.
Um, or bagged salad kits have been really helping me. And then for dinners, I used to cook more involved things. Cooking's one of my favorite things to do. It's a hobby of mine. But these days, I've been doing one pan oven meals with like frozen pre-cut vegetables, maybe a sausage or a chicken thigh. Not anything fancy, but just something that I can get done in 30 minutes that doesn't require all of those additional tasks. Because cooking, especially, I mean, you'd be surprised living like this. You realize that so many tasks that we take for granted as just simple tasks in life, there's actually like 10 tasks bundled into
Yeah.
that you have to do.
Yeah.
And if I can cut out 7 of those 10 tasks, that that helps a lot.
Yeah, I can relate, Eddie, because I love cooking and I also mainly eat instant ramen right now, so it's
Ramen
really
is delicious.
relatable.
Okay. I love ramen.
Are there still ways for you to find joy in everyday life?
At this current moment in time, no. I don't have extra energy to do anything, but normally I would be crocheting, which is actually something you got me into, Emerson. So thank you for
Yay.
that. That's been my main hobby for I think a year now.
Yeah.
It's something that I can do with my hands that I don't really have to like think about, especially if it's an easy pattern
Mhm.
or something like that, just like 1 or 2 stitches repeated over and over again. It does feel good to like create things
Yeah,
again, to like
absolutely.
exercise creativity, but I don't have time to do that now. I don't have energy to do that now. Sadly, that's been totally put on the back burner. There's just something about working with my hands that's really calming for my brain.
Hmm.
Just it makes everything kind of fade away into the background. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
tough when you can't have that. Other than that, the things that I would normally do to fill my time, sometimes I play like a really calm, relaxing game with a few of my other friends who also have long COVID. For a while before I was doing the classes, I would do that for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, almost every day, actually.
Wow.
And that was really important for me to feel like I had some sort of like social connection every single day, just a little bit of a social outlet since I can't leave the house very often. But I haven't been able to do that for some time now either. So I'm really missing that positive social interaction
Yeah.
in my life.
Hmm.
Yeah, when symptoms flare, it's the worst time because you lose, like for me at least, I lose all social connection because I'm not able to be on my phone, but I'm also not able to knit or crochet anymore. So you're sitting there in those terrible symptoms with no way to distract yourself or cope or talk to people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is when you need people the most. Even if someone wants
Yeah.
to be there for you, there's just no way to make it work without making yourself feel worse.
Are you worried that this level of exertion will affect your baseline in the long run?
Yeah, no. It's tough to say because I've had some very difficult, stressful periods during the last 4 years of this condition. And I have bounced back from a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I think that the extended and consistent nature of this stressor is pretty unique and unique to my other experiences so far with long COVID. And I am worried. It's one of those things where you never know what's going to be that thing that's going to push you over until you've done it.
Yeah.
There have been things that I'm surprised I was able to work through without a permanent reduction of my baseline. And there are some things that I'm surprised affected me the way they did, even
Yeah.
now, years later. So it's really hard to say. I don't want to be overly optimistic or overly pessimistic. All I can really do is just hope and do my best to cut corners where I can to preserve my energy.
Yeah.
And certainly after this is over, I'm going to be taking like 2 months off, 2 months of not doing
When is it
anything.
over?
It should be over February 6th, I believe.
So by
Yeah,
the
I
time
was,
this is published, this episode, you'll be done?
yeah.
Yes. Yay! That's so
Yay. If I
We
exciting.
listen
can
to this episode, when I listen to this episode in the future, it'll be like
Time
a nice little
capsule.
memory.
Yeah.
It'll all have just been a little memory. Uh,
Yeah. We have to
but
organize you a graduation party then when you're done.
thank you. That would be wonderful.
But
Yeah.
the
So that's
classes are for a long-term goal. Like if you get through these, then what are you hoping to get from that?
when people like us choose to take classes to go back to school, that's always a question, right? We're not just going back to school just for the fun of it. We
Because it's
can't
not
Yeah.
afford
fun.
just for the fun of it. No, we can't afford just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
No.
We are going back because we see it as a stepping stone to some sort of stability, perhaps being able to get a job where we can work remotely. Because the reality for so many of us is that we don't have the social systems in place to adequately take care of our needs, to adequately live, to pay our bills. We don't have people in our homes that are respectful of our disability,
Mhm.
respectful of our boundaries, our needs, the accommodations that we need, and any way for us to gain a skill that'll allow us a little bit more autonomy. Like that's the reason why we're taking these classes, right? So I love that question because yeah, I'm trying to take these classes so I can learn the language of majority here to help me integrate better, maybe help me get a job here. The job market is really tough right now.
Mhm.
So if I can make it out of these classes without permanently reducing my baseline, The goal is to take a 1-year professional development degree at a French-speaking actual education institution. At the end of this program, I would be able to have a stage, an internship, and hopefully that would allow me to enter the job market. I
Wow.
don't think that there's any other way for me to get any type of job here
Hmm.
without first the French language skills and then most critically the stage.
Right.
So
Wow.
I've already done a degree in geographic information systems. So this professional development degree would also be in what they call here geomatics. And I'm hoping that that will allow me to work from home the majority of the week, the majority of the month. So that's the end goal.
You kind of touched on this a little bit, Eddie, but what is something that you wish that educators or institutions understood about what students with long COVID and maybe other dynamic disabilities deal with?
I think that the most important thing isn't even that they understand at first. The most important thing is that they listen
Mm.
and they internalize what we're telling them. It doesn't matter what you know before I get put into your class. What matters is that if I'm telling you, like, I have these particular barriers or limitations, and this is how we could address them together so that I can get the most out of this class, so that my effort and your time is not wasted.
Yeah.
Like, that's every teacher, their ultimate goal should be making sure that you leave their class having learned something and getting the most out of their class that you possibly can. And that looks differently for everybody. The general public already knows that people learn in different ways. There are different ways of processing information. Some people can read instructions or hear them out loud and understand them. Some people have to work with their hands to really put something into practice before they can understand it.
Hmm.
So, why is it any different when it comes to a physical or a mental condition or disability, a chronic illness? Why are those things treated any differently?
Yeah.
It all comes down to what our abilities are and how can a teacher adapt to that. And sometimes it takes help from the wider community. It takes help from the institution, maybe other teachers, the Disability and Accommodation Center. But the thing that I wish most of all is they would just listen.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This just reminds me because I was doing my bachelor degree when I became disabled with long COVID, and all of my professors were so ignorant towards my long COVID, and they were just so unwilling to listen to me and learn from what I was telling them because my disability didn't fit into these classic ideas of this is what a disability is and this is how we would typically accommodate disabled students. So I totally agree with what you're saying there, Eddie. Um, I'd like to shift gears a little bit because you're an immigrant living in Quebec. How has that shaped your experience of navigating things like healthcare, medications, support systems, all while dealing with pretty debilitating long COVID?
Well, it's affected basically everything. I can't think of a single sphere of my life that it hasn't affected. And I will say that I started planning to immigrate here before I got sick with COVID. And that planning stage took about a year. And once I got COVID and realized that I was potentially developing long COVID, by that time, it felt too late to pump the brakes on this plan, right? Like I realized I had long COVID like a couple weeks before moving here, basically. I likely would not have moved here if I knew all the things that I know now, because it has made everything exponentially harder. I came here as a de facto spouse. We're not actually legally married, but we're common law partners in effect. And coming here as a spouse under the family reunification category, there are a lot of rights that I don't have that I would have had if I came as a student or if I had managed to come with a job. I have not had access to the socialized healthcare here provided by the province. To gain access to that as a spouse, you have to have not only a work permit, but 6 months of work history. So I'm in this spiral where I am having difficulty accessing healthcare because I'm not in the system and I need healthcare in order to be able to work. But in order to get healthcare, I have to be able to work. So I'm kind of in this catch-22 where I can't really progress with that. And I will have to wait until I get my permanent residence card to be eligible for the provincial healthcare. And being in Quebec specifically is very difficult because it has a two-tiered immigration process. I have to clear both the federal and provincial immigration systems. And if I was living in any other place in Canada, the timeline to get my permanent residence would have been about 1 year. But because I'm in Quebec, it's at least 3 years. I can have insurance through my partner's job, but the thing about the health system here is that if you don't have that insurance number from the socialized program, like that's your unique identifying number in the database for all of these different clinics, to make appointments online, to have all of your files in one place. So that way there's continuity of care. Because I don't have that number, when I try to make appointments places, they often tell me they can't help me. I can't have my records easily transferred places. Like I have to scan and fax everything. There aren't even urgent care clinics here. There are walk-in clinics that are so overloaded that you have to get an appointment. So like for me, not being in the system, having these difficulties with my energy, not being able to speak the language fluently, it's not realistic for me to get up every single morning at 8 a.m. when the clinics first open and to call dozens of places looking for an appointment. How am I supposed to
Right.
do that?
Yeah.
It's not possible. And what I really need is like an advocate
Mhm.
or a trusted friend or family member, someone to help me organize these things. But unfortunately, I'm an immigrant here. I don't have many friends here. The family that I have here through my partner, they don't really understand what I'm going through. I have constant social tension trying to negotiate my boundaries around my health, around masking, around testing. Yeah, I don't have a community to support me. The one that I have is kind of hostile to my needs. So
Mhm.
it's very difficult. And unfortunately, I do think there is a component where because I'm clearly an immigrant, I clearly don't speak the language very well. I do feel that I get poor treatment where other people wouldn't necessarily. It's been very difficult. I haven't seen a doctor in years. I have gone for years without my migraine abortive, and like not treating migraines can cause central sensitization, which can actually lead to ME/CFS or make it worse. So after years of medical neglect, like I wonder, is this making me worse? Is this making my condition permanent? Even if I am able to treat the long COVID, am I always going to have ME just from having untreated migraines? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so it's pretty bitter. It's a pretty bitter feeling. And yeah, I have guilt. Like, I don't want to say I have a lack of motivation because I have a lack of energy. But after years of trying to apply the little energy I have towards getting care, I do feel demotivated. And I do feel like I'm probably not as doing as much as I could be to keep pursuing care. But it's because every time I try, it's a waste of time and energy.
There's
Sorry, Eddie,
like,
that's
yeah,
terrible. And I don't even know what to say in that situation other than I'm just really sorry that
yeah.
so many people and institutions have let you down when you need them
They've
the most.
failed you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I feel so completely lost.
So, Eddie, if listeners would only remember one thing from your story here, what would you want it to be?
I'm actually going to say two things. It's imperative that when we undergo these great undertakings that we look for the accommodations. We ask for accommodations, or we assert our needs. We assert that we need these accommodations. It's not always going to work out perfectly. Like in my case, I didn't get the accommodations I needed from the institution. Nevertheless, I was able to find ways to accommodate myself in my personal life at home. And it's really, really important. I would not recommend to anyone to undertake something like this without first thoroughly reviewing what are my rights at this institution? How can the people around me support me? And how can I best support myself through this process?
Amen.
And then I want to also tell a little story, because ultimately, I don't think that taking these classes actually helped me from an educational perspective. But something good did come out of these classes, which is that I made friends through these classes. When you are disabled and chronically ill, it is very, very hard to make connections in the world. You can feel very, very alone.
Yeah.
And I'm really lucky that I got put into a class with a lot of other really nice, understanding people. And actually, beyond just like making friends with them and having a nice rapport with people, some people in my class actually noticed that throughout the weeks my health was declining. And they noticed that I wasn't as energetic as I was at the start of the class. I wasn't making as many jokes. I wasn't participating as much. The quality of my work was declining. And when we had been put into breakout rooms to work on a group project together, they kind of had a little bit of an intervention with me. They were like, Eddie, what is going on? You're not yourself lately. You don't look like you're doing very well. What is going on? And they wouldn't take my kind of surface level explanations, kind of like hand waving away. They wouldn't take that for an answer. They were asking me specific targeted questions. And I kind of spilled the whole beans to them. And they accepted what I was saying and they believed me. And beyond just that, they have been helping me to apply for a medical advocate. One of them found a program to help advocate for people with disabilities in this area.
Wow.
And helped me apply for an advocate. I don't have the answer back yet. I don't know how long that process takes. But these people who ultimately we see each other every day, but just as a tiny little box on a screen with 24 other tiny little boxes on the screen. I didn't even know anyone was looking at my tiny little box enough to see that I wasn't doing so good, you know?
Yeah.
I guess my point is that you will be surprised when you do things like this, when you meet other people. The vast majority of people, they aren't going to care. They're not going to notice, and they're certainly not going to offer to help. But there are still people out there who will, and you just have to remain open and accept the help when it's offered to you, even if it doesn't feel good, even if you're surprised. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though this was, from an educational perspective, this was a net negative for me. From a health perspective, this was a net negative for me. But having been able to make those connections, having someone just notice and recognize and care about my health has made a huge impact on my mental and emotional health for the better. And I might get real support, like physical, present, in real life support for my disability now because I met these people.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you found each other and
Yeah.
that they've been able to help you in such an important way. And I really hope that that advocate will lead to some
Me too.
change and help you access the medical care and get the medications that you need.
Yeah. You'll be surprised what you can find and the places
Yeah.
you can find it in. And
Yeah.
even making these very large efforts that can impact us negatively in some ways, there's still hope that a positive outcome will come out of that. It just might not be the one that you expected. I was surprised too. One of the women in my class, she was actually the one who instigated this whole intervention, but her daughter has dysautonomia. So as I was trying to explain my symptoms to them in French, which is not our native language, she was like, "Oh, do you have dysautonomia? My daughter has that." So obviously I have like dysautonomia and there are people out there who have these conditions, who know people who have these conditions. You'd be surprised. There are people who will recognize these things in you,
Yeah.
who understand how hard it is. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of finding them, but they exist, they're out there.
Eddie, thank you so much for not only speaking with us today, but also just for your openness and your honesty. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us. For our listeners, we do have a really cool thing to announce. Eddie will be coming back next month in May to share their health updates with you. We're really excited to talk about big life changes, how they're doing, and some different medical interventions that they've been trialing. So definitely stay tuned for next month's episode if you would like to hear more from Eddie. Before we wrap up this episode, I do want to highlight a urgent fundraiser this month. It's for an immigrant couple living in Montreal with severe long COVID. Their landlord is starting construction soon, which puts their health at serious risk because things like dust, noise, and constant stress could trigger severe health crashes and set them back in their recovery. After being bedbound for over a year, they were finally making improvements and even preparing to return back to work. They need to relocate quickly, but they're facing significant financial barriers. So, if you're able to contribute even a small amount, it truly makes a big difference. You can find the link in our show notes. As always, while our discussions offer medical related insights, this is not medical advice. Always consult your healthcare team with any of your medical concerns. And if you'd like to connect with our community, you'll find the link to our Discord in the show notes, along with our Substack and other socials. We aim to release episodes monthly, so please subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. Until next time, this is the COVID Long Haulers podcast signing off. See you on the next one.